the shower running. Her husband Trevor was singing off-key to some song she didn't recognize, completely relaxed, completely unaware. She stood in their bedroom, her hands shaking as she held his laptop open, her eyes fixed on the screen that had just shattered her entire world into a million pieces. The messages were right there. All of them. 2 years worth of lies, written out in explicit detail that made her stomach turn. Trevor and someone named Bridget. The woman worked at his company. They'd been carrying on this affair for 2 whole years while Naomi had been home, cooking his favorite meals, supporting his career, believing every single lie about late nights at the office and weekend business trips. "I can't wait to see you tomorrow," one message read. "My wife won't suspect anything. She never does. My wife won't suspect anything. She never does." Those words hit her like a physical blow. He was so confident, so sure of himself, so certain that she would never find out, and even if she did, she would never leave. 8 years of marriage, and this was what he really thought of her. Not as his partner, not as someone he loved and respected, but as someone too weak, too dependent, too foolish to ever walk away. The shower turned off. Naomi could hear Trevor humming now, probably reaching for his towel, probably thinking about what excuse he'd give her tonight for coming home late tomorrow. Her heart was racing, but her mind had gone completely still and cold. Something inside her had shifted. The woman who had walked into this bedroom 10 minutes ago, looking for the laptop to check a recipe, was gone. The woman standing here now was someone different. Someone who had just seen the truth with such clarity that it hurt to breathe. She took photos of the messages with her phone. Screen after screen of evidence. The dates, the times, the explicit conversations, the plans they'd made. Hotel on 5th Street, Friday night. "She's visiting her mother this weekend, we have the whole time. I love you, can't wait to leave early from that boring dinner with my wife." Every single word was a knife, but Naomi documented it all with steady hands. She sent the photos to her own email, then to a cloud storage account Trevor didn't know about. She cleared her phone's history of the sent messages. Then she closed the laptop, placed it exactly where she'd found it on his nightstand, and walked out of the bedroom. Her body was moving on autopilot. She went downstairs to the kitchen, pulled out ingredients for dinner, and started cooking. Her hands moved through familiar motions, chopping vegetables, stirring sauce, setting the table. Inside, she felt like she was watching herself from a distance. The bathroom door upstairs opened. She heard Trevor's footsteps above her, moving around the bedroom, getting dressed. This was her life. This beautiful house in the suburbs that she'd helped decorate, fill with warmth and love. The kitchen where she'd cooked thousands of meals. The dining table where they'd shared dinners and talked about their days, except his days had been lies. All of it had been lies. Trevor came downstairs 20 minutes later, dressed in sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair still damp. He was a good-looking man, she supposed. Tall, fit, with an easy smile that had attracted her all those years ago. That smile had hidden so much. "Something smells good," he said, walking into the kitchen and kissing her cheek like he always did. Like he was a loving husband. Like he hadn't spent the last 2 years betraying her in the worst possible way. "Just pasta," Naomi said, her voice steady. She was almost impressed with herself. "How was work?" "The usual. Long day. Lots of meetings." He grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat at the kitchen counter, watching her cook. "Johnson is being difficult about the Henderson account again. I might need to stay late tomorrow to sort it out." Tomorrow. The day he was planning to meet Bridget at that hotel. The lie came so easily to him. He didn't even hesitate. Naomi stirred the sauce and nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She'd heard this exact speech dozens of times over the past 2 years, and she'd believed every word. "You okay?" Trevor asked. "You seem quiet." She turned to look at him. Really look at him. This man she'd loved, trusted, built a life with. This man who had been living a double life while she'd been completely faithful, completely devoted. She'd turned down a promotion at work last year because it would have required more travel, and she'd wanted to be home for him. She'd given up so much, and he'd given her nothing but lies. "I'm fine," she said. "Just tired." "You worked too hard at that marketing firm," he said, taking a sip of his beer. "Maybe you should cut back your hours. We don't really need your income anyway. I make enough for both of us." There it was. The subtle dismissal of her career, her work, her contribution. He'd been saying things like this for years, and she'd never really heard it before. Never understood what he was really saying, that he didn't value what she did, that he saw her as dependent on him, that he thought she needed him more than he needed her. She served dinner in silence. They ate at the table like they had 1,000 times before. Trevor talked about his day, his coworkers, his projects. Every word out of his mouth was probably a lie. Or a half-truth. Naomi barely tasted her food. She responded when appropriate, nodded when expected, played the role of the good wife one more time. After dinner, Trevor went to watch television in the living room. Naomi cleaned up the kitchen, her movements mechanical. She washed dishes, wiped counters, put away leftovers. When everything was spotless, she went upstairs to the guest bedroom, closed the door, and finally let herself feel it. The pain crashed over her in waves. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands pressed to her mouth to keep from making any sound. 8 years. 8 years of her life given to a man who had respected her so little that he'd carried on an affair for 2 of them. 2 years of lies, every single day. Coming home to her, sleeping next to her, making love to her, all while he was with someone else. But underneath the pain, something else was growing. Something cold and sharp and absolutely certain. She was done. She was done crying, done hoping, done being the woman who loved him more than he'd ever deserved. Trevor thought she would never leave him. He was so sure of it that he barely bothered to hide his affair well. He'd left those messages on his laptop, accessible with a password she knew because he trusted she would never go looking. He was wrong. Naomi pulled out her phone and started searching for divorce attorneys. She'd given Trevor 8 years of devotion. She wasn't giving him one more day. The law office of Patterson and Associates was on the 10th floor of a downtown building with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. Naomi sat in the waiting room, her hands folded in her lap, her back straight. She'd taken a personal day from work, telling her supervisor she had a doctor's appointment. In a way, she did. This was about her health, about cutting out something toxic that had been slowly poisoning her life. Miss Bennett? A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a professional smile appeared in the doorway. I'm Rebecca Patterson. Please come in. The attorney's office was neat and organized, with law books lining one wall and degrees framed on another. Rebecca gestured to a comfortable chair across from her desk, and Naomi sat down, clutching her purse in her lap. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice, Naomi said. Of course. You mentioned on the phone that you're considering divorce. Rebecca pulled out a legal pad and pen. Why don't you tell me about your situation? Naomi took a breath and began. She told Rebecca everything. The 8 years of marriage, the discovery of the affair, the messages she'd found, the evidence she'd already gathered. She pulled out her phone and showed the attorney the screenshots she'd taken. As she talked, something strange happened. Her voice grew steadier, stronger. Saying it all out loud made it real, made her decision concrete. Rebecca listened without interruption, taking notes occasionally. When Naomi finished, the attorney leaned back in her chair. You've done the right thing by documenting everything, Rebecca said. With evidence like this, we have a very strong case. Now, let me ask you some practical questions. Do you own your home jointly? Yes. We bought it together 5 years ago. Any children? No. That was one mercy at least. They talked about having kids, but Naomi had wanted to wait until she felt more secure in her career. Now she was grateful they'd never taken that step. Joint bank accounts? Yes, but I also have my own account from before we married. I kept it open, though I haven't used it much. Good. Start using it again. If you have direct deposit for your paycheck, reroute it to that account immediately. Do you work? Yes. I'm a senior marketing coordinator at Cole Industries. Rebecca's eyebrows rose slightly. The Cole Industries? That's a solid company. How long have you been there? 6 years. I started as an assistant coordinator and worked my way up. Excellent. That will work in your favor. You have an established career and income independent of your husband. What does he do? He's a regional sales manager at Premier Tech Solutions. He makes about $90,000 a year. I make 65. Rebecca made more notes. This is all very helpful. Here's what I recommend. We file for divorce on the grounds of adultery. With the evidence you have, this should be straightforward. You'll want to request an equitable division of assets. Given that you've both contributed to the marriage financially and you have proof of his infidelity, you have a strong position. I don't want anything from him, Naomi said suddenly. I just want out. Rebecca gave her a firm look. I understand you're hurt and angry, but don't make decisions based on emotion. You've been married for 8 years. You've contributed to this marriage. Financially, emotionally, and in every other way. You're entitled to your share of the marital assets. That house you live in, you helped pay for it. The furniture, the savings, everything you've built together, you have every right to half of it. Naomi hadn't thought about it that way. She'd been so focused on the betrayal, on getting away from Trevor, that she hadn't considered the practical side of things. "You're right," she said quietly. "I also recommend that you don't tell your husband about this yet. Not until we have all our documentation in order and we're ready to serve him with papers. Can you do that? Can you go home and act normally while we prepare?" Could she? Naomi thought about the past 3 days since she'd found those messages. She'd gone to work, come home, cooked dinner, made conversation, slept in the same bed as Trevor. She'd done it all while feeling like she was made of glass, like one wrong move would shatter her completely. But she'd done it. "Yes," she said. "I can do that." "Good. This is going to take some time. Probably a few weeks to get everything prepared. In the meantime, I need you to gather more documentation. Bank statements, tax returns, any records of joint assets. Make copies of everything. Don't take originals that he might notice are missing. Can you do that?" "Yes." "And Naomi?" Rebecca leaned forward, her expression serious. "I want you to do something else. I want you to start thinking about what you want your life to look like after this is over. Not what you're leaving behind, but what you're moving toward. This divorce is going to be hard, but it's also an opportunity. You're going to rebuild your life. Start thinking about what that life looks like." Naomi left the attorney's office an hour later with a folder full of documents to read and sign, a list of things to gather, and a strange sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Rebecca was right. This wasn't just about ending her marriage. It was about starting something new. She drove back home, but instead of going inside right away, she sat in her car in the driveway and pulled out her phone. She opened her work email and started scrolling through messages she'd ignored while she was drowning in her personal crisis. There was one from 2 weeks ago that caught her eye. All staff meeting, new strategic initiative. Attendance mandatory. Tuesday, 10 a.m. She'd been at that meeting, but she'd barely paid attention. She'd been thinking about Trevor, wondering if he was telling the truth about a business dinner he'd mentioned. Now she opened the follow-up email that had gone out afterward. "We're looking for team members to lead high-impact projects for our Q4 campaign. If you're interested in taking on additional responsibility and showcasing your skills to senior leadership, please submit a proposal by Friday." That was tomorrow. Naomi had completely missed the deadline. Or had she? She checked the time. It was only 2 in the afternoon. She opened her laptop, still sitting in her car, and started typing. For the next 2 hours, Naomi worked on a proposal for a marketing campaign she'd been thinking about for months but never had the courage to suggest. It was ambitious, creative, and exactly the kind of thing that could get her noticed by upper management. By the time she finished, the sun was setting and her fingers ached from typing, but she had a 10-page proposal that she was actually proud of. She hit send at 4:57, 3 minutes before the office closed. Then she took a deep breath, grabbed her things, and went inside her house. Trevor was already home, which was unusual. He was in the living room, tie loosened, looking at his phone with a small smile. Texting Bridget, probably. "You're home late," he said without looking up. "I had some errands to run." Naomi set her purse down and went to the kitchen. "Are you hungry?" "I ate already." Grabbed something on the way home. He still hadn't looked up from his phone. There was a time when that would have hurt her feelings. When she would have felt guilty for not being home to make him dinner, for not being available when he wanted her. Now she felt nothing but a cold sense of relief. She made herself a sandwich, ate it standing at the counter, and then went upstairs. She spent the evening in the guest bedroom with her laptop, going through files and documents like Rebecca had instructed. Bank statements, mortgage papers, investment accounts. She copied everything to a secure cloud drive. Trevor never came to check on her. He probably assumed she was reading or watching something on her computer. Around 10, she heard him come upstairs and go into their bedroom. She waited an hour, then quietly crept down the hall. Through the crack in the door, she could see him asleep, his phone charging on the nightstand. She went back to the guest room and finally let herself sleep. The next morning, Naomi woke up at 6, got dressed in one of her best work outfits, and left the house before Trevor was even awake. She stopped at a coffee shop, bought herself an expensive latte she normally would have skipped, and arrived at work 30 minutes early. At 9 a.m., her supervisor called her into his office. "Naomi, I read your proposal last night," he said, gesturing for her to sit down. "I have to say I'm impressed. This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. I'm forwarding this to Mr. Cole. I think he's going to want to meet with you." Naomi felt her heart skip. Mr. Cole. Damien Cole, the CEO. She'd seen him at company meetings from a distance. He was known for being brilliant, demanding, and completely focused on excellence. "Thank you," she managed to say. "Don't thank me yet. If he likes this, You're going to be working directly with his office on implementation. That's a lot of pressure. Are you ready for that? For the first time in days, Naomi smiled. A real smile. Yes, she said. I'm ready. 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Naomi threw herself into work with an intensity that surprised everyone around her, including herself. The proposal she'd submitted had not only reached Damien Cole's desk, but had impressed him enough to fast-track it into development. She'd been assigned to lead a small team on what the company was calling the Quantum Campaign, a complete overhaul of their marketing strategy for the upcoming fiscal year. At home, she played her role perfectly. She had appropriate words. But inside, she was counting down the days. Rebecca had told her the divorce papers would be ready by the end of the month. Naomi had gathered every piece of documentation the attorney had requested. She'd even opened a new bank account at a different bank and started funneling small amounts of money into it, building up a safety net. Trevor noticed nothing. He was too busy with his affair. She'd watched him lie to her face at least a dozen times since that first discovery. Business dinners that didn't exist. Late nights at the office when his car was parked outside a hotel downtown. Weekend golf trips with colleagues who, when she'd casually mentioned them at a company party, had looked confused and said they hadn't seen Trevor in months. Each lie made her more certain of her decision. Each betrayal strengthened her resolve. She wasn't angry anymore. She was focused. Naomi, do you have a minute? She looked up from her computer to see her supervisor standing in her cubicle doorway. Behind him was someone else. Someone who made her pulse quicken with professional anxiety. Damien Cole stood there in an immaculate dark suit, his presence commanding even in the casual office environment. He was tall, probably in his late 30s, with dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She'd seen him at company meetings, always from afar, but up close he was even more imposing. Mr. Cole wanted to discuss the quantum campaign with you personally, her supervisor said, stepping aside. Naomi stood up quickly, smoothing down her skirt. Of course. Should we go to a conference room? My office would be better, Damien said. His voice was deep, controlled. We'll have more privacy there. She followed him through the maze of cubicles and offices, very aware of the curious glances from her co-workers. Damien Cole didn't usually come down to the marketing floor. People were taking notice. She kept her head high and her expression professional, even though her stomach was doing flips. His office was on the top floor, a corner space with windows on 2 walls offering a breathtaking view of the city. The furniture was modern, expensive, and minimal. Everything about the space spoke of power and control. Please sit. Damien gestured to a chair across from his desk. He didn't sit behind the desk, though. Instead, he took the chair next to hers, making the arrangement less formal. I've been reviewing your proposal in detail. It's impressive. Thank you. Where did you come up with the concept? The integration of social analytics with real-time consumer behavior modeling isn't something I've seen in this market. Naomi took a breath. She prepared for questions like this, but having Damien Cole's full attention was more intense than she'd expected. I've been studying consumer trends in my spare time, she said. I noticed the gap between what our current campaigns target and what the data actually shows about purchasing decisions. The old model assumes consumers make rational choices based on product features. But the research shows that emotional connection and social proof are far more influential. If we can identify the emotional triggers in real time and adjust our messaging accordingly, we can increase engagement by significant margins. Damien nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving her face. You've clearly put thought into this. I'm curious why you haven't submitted proposals before. You've been with the company for 6 years. It was a fair question, and one Naomi had asked herself many times over the past few weeks. Why had she held herself back? I didn't think I was ready, she admitted. I was focused on doing my assigned work well rather than pushing for more. And what changed? She met his gaze directly. I realized I was capable of more than I'd been giving myself credit for. Something shifted in Damien's expression. Not quite a smile, but a look of understanding. Good. Because this campaign is going to require you to step far outside your comfort zone. I'm making you the lead. You'll report directly to me. You'll have a budget of $2 million and a team of 8 people. The timeline is aggressive. We need to launch by the end of Q4. That's 12 weeks from now. Naomi's heart was racing. This was more than she'd hoped for. More responsibility, more visibility, more everything. I understand, she said. I won't let you down. I know you won't. Damien stood up and she followed suit. We'll meet twice a week to review progress. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. Don't be late. I value punctuality. Yes, sir. He walked her to the door, then paused. One more thing. I looked at your personnel file. You were offered a promotion 2 years ago and turned it down. Why? The question caught her off guard. She hadn't expected him to dig that deep into her history. Personal reasons, she said carefully. It would have required extensive travel, and my circumstances at the time didn't allow for that. And now? Now I'm available for whatever the position requires. Damien nodded. Good. Because this campaign will require travel. Trade shows, client meetings, presentations in other cities. If that's a problem, we need to discuss it now. Naomi thought about Trevor. About his lies, his affair, his assumption that she would always put his needs first. About the divorce papers that would be served in less than 2 weeks. It's not a problem, she said firmly. Not anymore. She left Damien's office feeling like she was floating. Her supervisor was waiting by the elevator with a huge grin on his face. You just got the opportunity of a lifetime, he said. Don't mess it up. I won't. That evening, Naomi came home later than usual. She'd stayed at the office, working on preliminary plans for the quantum campaign, building timelines and task lists. When she finally walked through the door at 8:30, Trevor was on the couch, watching television. Where were you? He asked, not bothering to look away from the screen. Work. I have a new project. You need to start coming home at reasonable hours. Dinner wasn't made. Something in Naomi snapped. Not into anger, but into clarity. She looked at this man, sprawled on the couch in their living room, complaining that she hadn't cooked his dinner while he'd been carrying on an affair for 2 years. The absurdity of it was almost funny. Order takeout, she said calmly and walked upstairs. She heard him call after her, his tone annoyed, but she didn't stop. She went to the guest bedroom, where she'd been spending most of her nights now, and closed the door. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from Rebecca Patterson. Papers are ready. We'll serve him on Friday at his office. Be prepared for his reaction. Do you have a safe place to stay? Naomi thought about that. She'd been so focused on the divorce itself that she hadn't really planned beyond it. She quickly typed back. I'll get a hotel room. Thank you for everything. The reply came within minutes. No hotel necessary. You can stay in the house. He's the one who cheated. He can leave. We'll file for exclusive occupancy of the marital home as part of the initial filing. Pack a bag for him. When he's served, you can hand it to him. Naomi stared at the message. Pack a bag for Trevor. Put his things in it. Watch him leave the house he'd taken for granted, the life he'd assumed would always be waiting for him no matter what he did. She stood up and walked down the hall to their bedroom. Trevor's clothes hung in the closet, his shoes lined up neatly below. She'd organized all of this for him. She'd done his laundry, folded his shirts, made sure he always had clean clothes for work. While he was out with Bridget, she pulled a large duffel bag from the top shelf and started packing. Clothes, toiletries, shoes. She packed methodically, taking enough for a week or two. When the bag was full, she zipped it up and shoved it under the guest bed where Trevor never went. Then she went back downstairs. Trevor was still on the couch, eating Chinese takeout straight from the container. There's more in the kitchen if you want some, he said, still not looking at her. I'm not hungry. She sat in the armchair across from him and pulled out her laptop. She had work to do. Plans to make. A campaign to build. A life to reclaim. Trevor finally glanced over at her. You're being weird lately. Am I? Yeah. Distant. Is something wrong? Naomi looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who thought he knew her so well, who was so confident in his control over their relationship that he barely bothered to hide his affair. This man who was about to get the shock of his life. No, she said, turning back to her laptop. Everything's fine. He shrugged and went back to his show. Naomi allowed herself a small smile as she typed. Friday was 3 days away. 72 more hours of pretending. She could do that standing on her head. After all, she'd been pretending her marriage was real for the past 2 years while Trevor destroyed it. What was 3 more days? Tuesday morning arrived with clear skies and Naomi's first official meeting with Damien Cole as lead on the quantum campaign. She'd barely slept the night before, running through presentations in her mind, anticipating questions, preparing responses. By the time she walked into his office at exactly 9 a.m., she had her laptop, a notebook full of ideas, and enough nervous energy to power a small city. Damien was already there, of course. He struck her as the type who arrived before everyone else and left after them all. His desk was organized with military precision, and he had 2 large monitors displaying what looked like financial reports and market analysis data. Punctual. Good. He gestured to the small conference table by the windows. Let's see what you've got. Naomi set up her laptop and pulled up the presentation she'd spent all weekend preparing. She'd created a full project timeline, identified key milestones, drafted preliminary budgets, and outlined the team structure she'd need. As she walked through each slide, Damien listened without interruption. His focus was absolute. He didn't check his phone, didn't glance at his computer, didn't let his attention waver for even a second. It was unnerving and exhilarating at the same time. When was the last time someone had given her their complete attention? She knew the answer to that question. Never. Trevor certainly never had. Stop. Naomi froze, her heart sinking. Had she made a mistake? This approach to influencer partnerships, he continued, pointing at her screen. You're thinking too small. Why are you only targeting micro-influencers with 50 to 100,000 followers? Budget constraints, Naomi explained. The larger influencers with millions of followers require significant investment, and the ROI isn't always proportionate to the cost. Micro-influencers have higher engagement rates and more targeted audiences. True, but you're missing an opportunity. What if we created our own influencers? Naomi blinked. I'm not sure I follow. Damien stood up and walked to a whiteboard on the wall. He picked up a marker and started drawing. Instead of paying existing influencers, we identify compelling individuals within our target demographics and give them the tools and platform to become influencers themselves. We provide the content, the training, the support. They become brand ambassadors who are genuinely invested in our success because we've invested in them. As he talked, Naomi's mind started racing. He was right. It was brilliant. Instead of renting influence, they'd be building it from the ground up. The authenticity would be undeniable, and the long-term value would far exceed traditional influencer partnerships. That would require a completely different infrastructure, she said, already mentally redesigning her approach. We'd need a content creation team, a training program, legal agreements for brand partnerships. Yes. Can you build that? I can. She was already taking notes. It'll push the budget, but if we reallocate resources from the traditional influencer line item, we can make it work. Damien set down the marker and looked at her with something that might have been approval. This is why I greenlit your proposal. You don't just accept limitations. You find ways around them. They worked for another 2 hours, completely redesigning sections of the campaign. Damien challenged every assumption, pushed back on every conservative estimate, and forced Naomi to think bigger than she ever had before. It was exhausting and energizing all at once. By the time they finished, Naomi had more work than she'd started with, but she also had a campaign that was exponentially better than her original concept. Same time Thursday, Damien said as she packed up her laptop. And Naomi? I want you to start thinking about the team you'll need. You have carte blanche to recruit from within the company. If you need someone from another department, let me know and I'll make it happen. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Call me Damien. We're going to be working closely together. Formality will just slow us down. She nodded, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with professional excitement. Damien Cole was her boss. This was work. The fact that he was attractive, brilliant, and giving her more professional respect in 2 hours than Trevor had in 8 years meant nothing. Or it shouldn't mean anything. She reminded herself firmly that she was still technically married, even if that marriage was ending in 3 days. She spent the rest of Tuesday and all of Wednesday building her team and refining the campaign structure. She recruited a content specialist from the creative department, a data analyst from finance, a social media coordinator from public relations. Each person she approached was excited to be part of the project. Working directly with the CEO was a career maker. By Thursday morning, she had a complete team roster and revised project plan. She met with Damien again and he approved everything with minimal changes. They were developing a rhythm, she realized. He'd push her to think bigger, she'd find practical ways to implement his vision, and together they'd create something neither of them could have done alone. I'm leaving for New York on Sunday, Damien said at the end of their meeting. There's a technology expo where we'll be unveiling some new products. I want you to come with me. You should see how we present at these events, and I want your input on how we can better integrate marketing with product launches. Sunday? Naomi's mind raced. That was right after Trevor would be served with divorce papers. For how long? 4 days. We'll be back Thursday evening. She should say no. She should stay in town while everything with the divorce was happening, be available if her attorney needed her. But then she thought about Trevor's reaction when he got those papers. His anger, his manipulation, his inevitable attempts to make her feel guilty. Did she want to be around for that? I'll be there, she said. Good. My assistant will send you the flight details. That evening, Naomi went home and found Trevor in the kitchen, actually cooking something. It was so unusual that she stopped in the doorway and stared. What's the occasion? She asked. Can't a husband make dinner for his wife? Trevor smiled at her, that charming smile that used to make her heart skip. Now it just made her suspicious. I know I've been busy with work lately. Thought we could have a nice evening together. She knew what this was. He'd been planning to see Bridget tomorrow and something had fallen through. So now he was home, pretending to be the attentive husband, and expecting Naomi to be grateful for the scraps of attention. That's nice, she said neutrally. She set down her bag and went to wash her hands. They ate dinner together, Trevor talking about some problem at work that was probably completely fabricated. Naomi nodded in the right places, made sympathetic noises, and felt absolutely nothing. It was amazing how easy it had become to pretend. Or maybe she'd been pretending for so long that this was just more of the same. So I was thinking, Trevor said as they were cleaning up, maybe we should take a vacation. We haven't done that in a while. What do you think about going somewhere next month? Maybe the Caribbean? Naomi rinsed a plate and put it in the dishwasher. Next month she'd be divorced. Trevor would know about the affair being exposed. Their life together would be completely over. And here he was planning a vacation like everything was fine. I have a big project at work, she said. I don't think I can take time off right now. Come on, babe. Work can wait. When's the last time we did something fun together? When's the last time you weren't sleeping with someone else? She thought but didn't say. Let me check my schedule, she said instead. I'll let you know. Trevor seemed satisfied with that. He finished cleaning up and pulled her in for a kiss. Naomi let him, feeling nothing but a vague disgust. How had she ever loved this man? She went upstairs early, claiming exhaustion. In the guest bedroom, she checked her email and found a message from Rebecca. Everything is set for tomorrow. The process server will deliver the papers to his office at 2 p.m. Make sure you're not alone when he comes home. Is there a friend or family member who can be with you? Naomi thought about that. She'd been so focused on work and hiding her plans that she'd isolated herself from her friends. Most of them were couple friends, people she and Trevor knew together. Her family was across the country. She talked to her mother on the phone a few times but hadn't told her about any of this yet. I'll be fine, she typed back. I can handle it. But could she? She'd been holding everything together through sheer force of will, throwing herself into work to avoid thinking about her crumbling marriage. Tomorrow, everything would become real. Trevor would know. He'd be angry, probably furious. He might try to stop her from leaving. He might. Her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Damien. Just confirmed the hotel for Sunday. 2 rooms adjoining. Easier for working together. Is that acceptable? Professional. Practical. Focused on the work. That's all this was. Perfect, she replied. Thank you. She lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. 24 hours from now, her marriage would be officially over. Trevor would be served with papers. He'd come home angry and confused, demanding explanations. And she'd hand him his packed bag and watch him leave. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, all she felt was relief. Friday morning, Naomi woke up with a sense of calm she hadn't expected. Today was the day. After weeks of planning, gathering evidence, and pretending everything was normal, Trevor would finally know the truth. Not the truth about his affair. He still had no idea she'd discovered that. No, today he'd learned that she was done. That she'd been planning her escape while he'd been assuming she'd never leave. She got dressed in one of her best outfits, a deep blue dress that made her feel powerful. She did her makeup carefully, taking her time. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone different from the woman who'd discovered those messages 3 weeks ago. That woman had been broken, devastated. This woman was ready. Trevor was already downstairs, eating breakfast and scrolling through his phone. Probably texting Bridget, making plans for later. Let him. In a few hours, his whole world would turn upside down. You look nice, he said, barely glancing up. Big meeting today? Something like that. She made herself coffee and toast, ate standing at the counter. Trevor didn't notice how tense she was, how carefully she was controlling her breathing. He never noticed anything about her unless it directly affected him. I'll be home late tonight, Trevor said, standing up and grabbing his briefcase. Probably around 8 or 9. Don't wait up. Actually, Naomi said, her voice steady. I think you should plan to come home early today. Around 5. Trevor frowned. What? What's going on? Just come home at 5. It's important. He looked annoyed but nodded. Fine. 5 o'clock. This better not be some dinner party thing. You know I hate surprise guests. It's not a dinner party. I promise. He kissed her cheek absently and left. Naomi listened to his car pull out of the driveway, then let out a long breath. She grabbed her phone and texted Rebecca. He'll be home at 5. What time is he being served? The reply came quickly. 2 p.m. at his office. Papers will be in his hands before he leaves work. Are you ready for this? Was she? Naomi looked around the kitchen, at the house she'd helped turn into a home, at the life she'd built with a man who hadn't respected any of it. Yes, she was ready. I'm ready. Work that day was both a distraction and a torture. Naomi tried to focus on the quantum campaign, reviewing the team assignments and finalizing details for the New York trip, but her mind kept wandering to Trevor's office. What would his face look like when the process server handed him the papers? Would he be shocked? Angry? Would he even care? At 1:58 p.m., Naomi was in a team meeting when her phone buzzed silently in her pocket. She ignored it. 2 more buzzes followed in quick succession. She excused herself from the conference room and checked her messages in the hallway. 3 missed calls from Trevor. 2 voicemails. 5 text messages, each one more frantic than the last. Call me right now. What the hell is this? Naomi, answer your phone. We need to talk. This is insane. I'm coming home. You better be there. Naomi deleted the voicemails without listening to them. She turned off her phone and went back into the meeting. Whatever Trevor was feeling right now, he deserved it. He'd get his chance to talk when she was ready, not before. She left work at 4:30, giving herself time to get home and prepare. The duffel bag she'd packed with Trevor's things was still under the guest bed. She pulled it out, carried it downstairs, and set it by the front door. Then she made herself a cup of tea, sat in the living room, and waited. Trevor's car screeched into the driveway at 4:50. He was early, probably speeding the whole way home. Naomi heard him slam the car door, then storm up to the house. The front door flew open, and there he was, her husband of 8 years, holding divorce papers, his face red with anger. What the hell is this? He shouted, waving the papers at her. Naomi took a sip of her tea. It's exactly what it looks like. I'm divorcing you. You can't just... We need to talk about this. You can't make this decision without discussing it with me. I don't need to discuss anything with you. I've made my decision. Trevor threw the papers on the coffee table and started pacing. This is insane. This is completely out of nowhere. What's going on with you? Are you having some kind of breakdown? No breakdown. I'm actually clearer than I've been in years. Then what is this about? Is it money? Do you want me to help more around the house? Whatever it is, we can fix it. We don't need to get divorced. Naomi set down her tea and stood up. She walked to the bookshelf, pulled out a folder she'd hidden behind some books, and handed it to Trevor. What's this? He asked suspiciously. Open it. He did. Inside were printouts of the messages she'd found on his laptop. All of them. 2 years' worth of evidence of his affair with Bridget, laid out in chronological order. She watched his face go pale as he flipped through page after page. Naomi, I can explain. Don't. Her voice was ice. Don't you dare try to explain. I found these 3 weeks ago. I've had 3 weeks to process this, to cry, to be angry, to grieve for our marriage. I'm done with all of that now. You've been cheating on me for 2 years with Bridget from your office. 2 years, Trevor. Every late night, every business trip, every time you looked me in the eye and lied to me. I know everything. It wasn't, he stumbled over his words, looking genuinely panicked for the first time. It didn't mean anything. She doesn't mean anything. You're my wife. I love you. You don't love me. You never did. You loved having me here, taking care of you, supporting you, being whatever you needed while you did whatever you wanted. That's not love. That's convenience. That's not true. Naomi, please. This was a mistake. A stupid mistake. I'll end it. I'll never see her again. We can work through this. People get past affairs all the time. We can go to counseling. I don't want to work through this. I don't want to go to counseling. I don't want to give you another chance. I want you to leave. Trevor's expression shifted from panic to anger. Leave? This is my house too. Actually, as of today, it's not. I filed for exclusive occupancy. The judge granted a temporary order pending the divorce proceedings. You need to vacate the premises. Your bag is by the door. He stared at her like he'd never seen her before. You've been planning this. All of this. While I thought everything was fine, you've been plotting to. While you thought everything was fine, I was finding out about your affair and deciding I deserved better. Yes, I've been planning. I met with an attorney. I gathered evidence. I got my finances in order. I did everything necessary to make sure I could leave you cleanly. Just like you spent 2 years carrying on an affair while pretending to be a faithful husband. This is insane. You're being crazy. We can't just throw away 8 years of marriage. You threw it away when you decided Bridget was more important than your vows. I'm just making it official. Trevor ran his hands through his hair, his anger giving way to desperation. Okay, I messed up. I messed up badly. But doesn't 8 years mean anything to you? Don't I mean anything? We can fix this. I swear I'll do anything. I'll quit my job. I'll never see her again. Whatever you want. I want you to leave. Naomi, please. Get out, Trevor. Right now. Or I'll call the police and have them remove you. They stared at each other across the living room. Naomi kept her posture straight, her expression calm. Inside, her heart was racing, but she refused to let him see any weakness. This was the moment. Either he'd accept that it was over or he'd escalate. She honestly didn't know which way it would go. Finally, Trevor bent down and picked up the divorce papers. Fine. If this is what you want, fine. But you're making a huge mistake. You're going to regret this. I already regret 8 years with you. I'm not about to add any more. He grabbed the duffel bag and stormed toward the door. Then he turned back. You won't get everything, you know. I have a good lawyer too. You think you're going to take me for all I'm worth, but I'll fight you on every single thing. I don't want everything. I just want out. The house, the assets, all of that we can divide fairly. I'm not trying to destroy you financially. I just want my freedom. And what are you going to do with your freedom? Stay in this house alone? Grow old by yourself? Good luck finding someone else at your age. There it was. The cruelty she'd been waiting for. The real Trevor, stripped of his charm and his lies. I'm 32 years old with a successful career and no cheating husband dragging me down. I'll be just fine. You're the one who should worry about finding someone else once Bridget realizes you're not the catch you pretend to be. Trevor's face went red again, but he didn't say anything else. He walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Naomi heard his car start, heard him peel out of the driveway. Then silence. She stood in the living room for a long moment, processing what had just happened. Her husband was gone. Her marriage was over. The life she'd known for 8 years had ended in a 15-minute confrontation. And she felt free. The weight that had been pressing on her chest for weeks suddenly lifted. She could breathe again. Really breathe. She walked around the house, room by room, seeing it differently now. This wasn't their house anymore. It was her house. Her space. Her fresh start. She picked up her phone and turned it back on. 27 missed calls and texts from Trevor. She blocked his number. Then she called Rebecca. He's gone, Naomi said. He left. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I'm okay. I'm actually better than okay. What happens now? Now we wait for him to respond to the filing. He has 30 days. In the meantime, you go live your life. You did the hard part. The rest is just paperwork. After she hung up, Naomi ordered Thai food delivery, poured herself a glass of wine, and sat on her couch in her house. Tomorrow she'd fly to New York with Damian Cole. She'd work on the biggest campaign of her career. She'd start building the life she wanted instead of the life she'd settled for. But tonight, she just sat in the quiet, enjoying her freedom. The flight to New York left Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Naomi arrived at the airport an hour early, a habit from her marriage when Trevor always insisted on excessive buffer time for everything. Now, sitting in the departure lounge with a coffee and her laptop, she realized she didn't have to operate on anyone else's schedule anymore. You're here early. She looked up to see Damien approaching with just a carry-on bag and his briefcase. Of course he'd pack light. Everything about him suggested efficiency. I hate rushing, she said. Good. So do I. He sat down beside her, maintaining a professional distance but close enough that she could smell his cologne. Subtle, expensive. Did you review the briefing materials I sent? They spent the wait and most of the flight discussing the tech expo, the product launches Cole Industries would be showcasing, and where the quantum campaign could integrate. Damien was demanding but not condescending. He listened to her ideas, challenged her assumptions, and built on her suggestions. It was exhilarating. The hotel was in Midtown Manhattan, a sleek building with a modern lobby. As Damien had mentioned, they had adjoining rooms. His assistant had arranged them on the executive floor. Naomi found herself in a beautiful space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. There was a knock on the connecting door between their rooms. We have 2 hours before the welcome reception, Damien called through. I'm ordering room service if you want something. They ate lunch together at the small table in his room, going over the schedule for the next 4 days. It felt strangely intimate, this working relationship they were developing. Naomi couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so intellectually matched with someone. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Bridget. We need to talk." Naomi stared at the message. How had Bridget gotten her number? Probably from Trevor's phone. She felt a flare of anger but pushed it down. "Everything okay?" Damien asked, noticing her expression. "Just some personal drama I'm dealing with. Nothing important." She deleted the message and blocked the number. Whatever Bridget wanted to say, Naomi didn't want to hear it. That chapter of her life was closed. The tech expo was overwhelming in the best way. Thousands of attendees, hundreds of booths, cutting-edge technology everywhere. Damien introduced her to industry leaders, potential partners, journalists. She took notes constantly, already seeing opportunities for the quantum campaign. On Tuesday evening, after a full day of presentations and meetings, they had dinner at a restaurant near the hotel. It was ostensibly to debrief about the day, but the conversation drifted into more personal territory. "You mentioned personal drama earlier," Damien said over wine. "I don't mean to pry, but if it's affecting your work, I should know." Naomi considered how much to tell him. He was her boss. This was professional. But something about the way he asked, genuinely concerned rather than nosy, made her want to be honest. "I filed for divorce," she said. 2 weeks ago." Damien didn't look shocked or uncomfortable. "That explains the change." "What change?" "The last few weeks you've been different. More focused. More driven." "I assumed it was the campaign opportunity, but it's more than that, isn't it? I found out my husband was having an affair. Has been for 2 years. I decided I deserved better." "You do." Damien said it simply, matter-of-factly. "I'm sorry you went through that, but I'm not sorry you're here now. You're one of the most talented people I've worked with. If your marriage was holding you back, then ending it was the right call." It was probably the least romantic thing anyone had ever said about her divorce, but somehow it was exactly what she needed to hear. Not pity, not sympathy, just acknowledgement that she'd made a good professional decision for herself. "Thank you," she said. "How is he taking it?" "Not well. He's trying to get me to reconsider. He doesn't seem to understand that I'm done. Men like that never do. They assume women will always forgive them, always take them back. They don't realize until it's too late that they've burned through all their chances." There was something in the way Damien said it that made Naomi curious. "You sound like you're speaking from experience." "Observation mostly. I've seen it happen to colleagues, friends, people who took their partners for granted and were shocked when they left. It's always the same pattern: betrayal, denial, desperate attempts to fix it, and finally anger when they realize it's really over." "Is that what you think Trevor will do? Get angry?" "Eventually. Right now he's probably still in the desperate phase. But when he accepts that you're not coming back, he'll try to hurt you however he can. Be prepared for that." Naomi thought about Trevor's parting words. About Bridget having her number. About the divorce proceedings that were just beginning. "I will be." They flew back to the city on Thursday evening. Naomi felt energized, her head full of ideas and strategies for the campaign. But when she got home, she found her mailbox had been vandalized. Someone had spray-painted a crude word across it. Inside, there were 3 envelopes that had been shoved through her mail slot. She opened them with trembling hands. They were bills, credit cards she didn't recognize, all in her name, all maxed out. Trevor. Had to be. She called Rebecca immediately. "Document everything," the attorney said grimly. "Take pictures, keep the bills. This is financial abuse, and it's going to work in your favor during the proceedings." He's panicking and making mistakes. "What do I do about the cards?" "File police reports for identity fraud. Contact the credit card companies and explain the situation. With the divorce filing, they'll work with you." "And Naomi? Be careful. If he's doing this, he might escalate." After hanging up, Naomi sat in her living room and felt her hands shaking. She'd been so focused on moving forward that she hadn't really prepared for Trevor to fight back. She'd assumed he'd accept the divorce and move on, maybe back to Bridget. Her phone rang. Another unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Naomi? It's Bridget. Please don't hang up." "How did you get my number?" "Trevor gave it to me. Look, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I need you to know something. This whole situation, it's not what you think. I think my husband had a 2-year affair with you." "Is that not accurate?" "No, yes, that's accurate. But he told me you two were separated." He said you were basically living separate lives and the divorce was a formality. I didn't know he was lying until he showed up at my place last week crying about how you'd kicked him out. Naomi closed her eyes. Of course Trevor had lied to Bridget too. Of course he'd painted himself as the victim. I don't care what he told you, Naomi said. This isn't your fault. But I also don't want to talk to you. Please don't call me again. Wait. I wanted to apologize. And to warn you. He's really angry right now. He's talking about making you pay for embarrassing him. I don't know what he's planning, but be careful. The line went dead. Naomi sat there processing. Bridget sounded genuinely concerned. Maybe she'd been manipulated by Trevor just like Naomi had been. But that didn't change anything. Naomi didn't want revenge on Bridget. She didn't want anything to do with either of them. She spent the rest of the evening securing her house, checking locks, considering a security system. She filed police reports online about the credit card fraud. She forwarded everything to Rebecca. When she finally went to bed, exhausted, her phone buzzed one more time. A text from Damien. Great work this week. Team meeting Monday at 9 to debrief. Get some rest. Professional. Appropriate. But somehow comforting. She had work to focus on. She had a campaign to build. She had a future that didn't include Trevor. She'd get through this. She'd already gotten through the worst part. Everything else was just noise. The weeks after New York blurred together in a whirlwind of productivity. Naomi threw herself into the quantum campaign with single-minded focus, and the results were remarkable. The team she'd assembled worked seamlessly together. The influencer creation program Damien had suggested was exceeding all projections. Early test campaigns were showing engagement rates triple the industry standard. Trevor continued his harassment. More fake credit cards appeared. He created social media accounts in her name posting bizarre content. He called her workplace pretending to be a client with complaints. Each time, Naomi documented everything and forwarded it to Rebecca. Each time, Trevor was building the case against himself. He's making this easy, Rebecca said during one of their check-ins. Most divorces involve some level of he said, she said. But your husband is creating a paper trail of harassment and fraud. When we go before the judge, this is going to be straightforward. The divorce proceedings moved slowly as these things did. Trevor had hired an attorney who was trying to drag everything out, probably hoping Naomi would get tired and settle for less. But Naomi wasn't backing down. She wanted her fair share and she was willing to wait. At work, things were different. The quantum campaign was becoming the talk of the company. Senior executives from other departments started attending their team meetings. Damien included Naomi in strategy sessions that were usually reserved for vice presidents. She was being noticed, and not just for this one project. You've done exceptional work, Damien told her one evening as they reviewed quarterly projections. They were in his office long after everyone else had gone home. It was becoming a habit, late nights working together, bouncing ideas off each other, pushing each other to think bigger. Thank you. I couldn't have done it without the team. And your guidance. Don't sell yourself short. The team executes your vision. And I've guided plenty of people who couldn't do what you're doing. He paused, studying her. I'm recommending you for a promotion. Director of Strategic Marketing. It comes with a significant raise and a seat at the executive table. Naomi's heart skipped. Director? But I've only been lead on this project for 2 months. And in those 2 months, you've delivered results that some people don't achieve in years. You're ready. Unless you don't think you are? No, I am. Thank you. This means everything to me. You've earned it. The board will vote on it next month, but it's a formality. The position is yours. She should have kept it professional. Should have just thanked him again and left. But the emotion of the moment overwhelmed her. Everything she'd been through, everything she'd lost and gained. Before she could stop herself, she was crying. I'm sorry, she said, quickly wiping her eyes. This is so unprofessional. I don't normally. Hey. Damien's voice was gentle. He handed her a box of tissues from his desk. You're allowed to be human. You've been dealing with a divorce, harassment from your ex, and the pressure of this campaign all at once. Anyone would be emotional. I just never thought I'd get here. 3 months ago, I was stuck in a marriage that was killing my spirit, working a job I was good at but not passionate about. And now you're about to be a director at one of the most successful companies in the industry. You did that. Not me, not the campaign. You. Their eyes met and something shifted in the air between them. It had been building for weeks, this connection that went beyond professional respect. Naomi felt it every time they worked late together, every time Damien looked at her like she was the most interesting person in the room. every time he challenged her to be better. But she was still technically married. The divorce wasn't final. And he was her boss. I should go, she said, standing up quickly. It's late. Naomi. Damien stood too. I want you to know that I respect you immensely. As a colleague, as a professional. Whatever is happening here, we don't have to act on it. Not now. Not until you're ready. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. And so do I. But I'm patient. I can wait until your divorce is final, until you've had time to process everything you've been through. I'm not going anywhere. She wanted to deny it. To maintain the professional fiction that this was just about work. But she couldn't lie to him and she couldn't lie to herself. My divorce should be final in about 6 weeks, she said quietly. The court date is set. Then I'll see you at work tomorrow, director-to-be. Get some rest. She left his office feeling like she was floating. She had a promotion coming. She had a future that excited her. And she had someone who respected her enough to wait until she was ready. When she got home, there was a letter taped to her door. Not mailed, hand-delivered. She recognized Trevor's handwriting on the envelope. Inside was a single page, handwritten. Naomi, please. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But we can fix this. I've been going to therapy. I've ended things with Bridget completely. I quit my job so I'd never have to see her again. I'm doing everything you asked for. Please just talk to me. Give me one chance to prove I've changed. I love you. I always have. Trevor. She read it twice, then crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. He'd quit his job? That was his choice. She hadn't asked him to do anything because she wasn't interested in reconciliation. He could go to therapy, could change his entire life, and it wouldn't matter. She didn't want him back. Her phone rang. A number she didn't recognize. She answered cautiously. Naomi Bennett? A woman's voice, professional. Yes. This is Detective Sarah Morrison with the police department. We've been investigating the credit card fraud and harassment complaints you filed. We have enough evidence to press charges against Trevor Bennett. I wanted to inform you before we proceed. Are you comfortable with us moving forward with charges? Naomi sat down heavily on her couch. Criminal charges. That would mean Trevor wouldn't just lose their marriage. He'd have a record. It could affect his ability to get another job, could follow him for years. But he'd made his choices. He'd created fake credit cards in her name. He'd harassed her for weeks. She tried to end things cleanly and he'd escalated at every turn. Yes, she said. Proceed with the charges. Understood. You'll need to come in tomorrow to give a formal statement. Can you make it to the station around 10 a.m.? I'll be there. After hanging up, Naomi sat in the quiet of her house and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. Trevor had pushed and pushed, thinking he could force her to respond, to engage, to come back to him. Instead, he pushed himself right into legal trouble. She wasn't vindictive. She wasn't trying to destroy him. But she also wasn't going to be his victim. He'd made this bed. Now he could lie in it. The next morning, she went to the police station and gave her statement. The detective showed her evidence they'd gathered. Security footage of Trevor at the post office mailing threatening letters, phone records showing hundreds of calls to her number from burner phones, email trails where he'd impersonated her to various companies. This is one of the more clear-cut cases I've seen, Detective Morrison said. He didn't even try to cover his tracks. He'll be arrested by the end of the day. Naomi went to work after the police station. She had a team meeting at 9, a one-on-one with Damien at 10, and a presentation to the executive board at 2. Her life was full, busy, moving forward. At 3 p.m., Rebecca called. Trevor's attorney just contacted me. He wants to settle. All of it, the divorce, the asset division, everything. He's willing to give you the house free and clear, split the savings 60-40 in your favor, and pay for all legal fees. In exchange, he wants you to drop the criminal charges. Naomi thought about it. She could take the settlement. Could walk away with more than she'd expected and close this chapter of her life immediately. Or she could let the criminal charges proceed and risk the divorce settlement getting messier. Take the settlement, she said. But I'm not dropping the charges. Those are separate. He committed crimes. He should face consequences. His attorney won't like that. I don't care. The settlement is about our marriage ending. The charges are about him breaking the law. Those are two different things. Understood. I'll communicate that. Naomi, you're handling this remarkably well. I'm done being the woman who lets people walk all over her. If that means Trevor faces real consequences for his actions, so be it. She hung up and went back to work. There was a campaign to run, a promotion to prepare for, and a future to build. Trevor had spent 2 years thinking she'd never find out about his affair. Then he'd spent weeks thinking he could manipulate her into taking him back. Now he was learning what she'd known all along. She was stronger than anyone had given her credit for, especially herself. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in October. Naomi sat in the courthouse with Rebecca, watching as the judge reviewed their settlement agreement and Trevor's criminal case information. Trevor was there too, at the opposite end of the courtroom with his attorney, looking defeated and angry. They didn't make eye contact. The court finds the settlement agreement to be fair and equitable, the judge said, signing the papers. The marriage between Naomi Bennett and Trevor Bennett is hereby dissolved. Ms. Bennett, you retain ownership of the marital home. The asset division will proceed as outlined. Mr. Bennett, you have 30 days to remove any remaining personal effects from the property. Just like that, it was over. 8 years of marriage ended with a signature and a gavel. Naomi walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than she had in years. The morning air was crisp and cool, autumn beginning to turn the trees gold and red. Congratulations, Rebecca said, shaking her hand. You're officially free. Thank you. For everything. I couldn't have done this without you. You did all the hard parts yourself. I just filed the paperwork. What's next for you? I start my new position as Director of Strategic Marketing next week, and I'm going to live my life on my own terms. They parted ways and Naomi drove to work. She was technically off for the morning to handle the court appearance, but she didn't want to sit at home. She wanted to be productive, to keep moving forward. When she got to the office, Damien was waiting in the lobby. I thought you weren't coming in until this afternoon, he said. Court finished early. I wanted to work. Or we could celebrate. He held up a paper bag from a nearby cafe. Coffee and pastries. My treat. Unless you'd rather dive into spreadsheets. Naomi smiled. Coffee sounds perfect. They went to a small park a block from the office, finding a bench with a view of the city skyline. It was peaceful here, removed from the bustle of downtown, but still part of it. How do you feel? Damien asked, handing her a cup. Free. Relieved. A little sad, which is strange. Not sad that the marriage is over, but sad that I wasted so much time on something that was never going to work. It wasn't wasted. You learned what you don't want. That's valuable. I suppose. What about you? You've mentioned you understand this kind of thing. Have you been divorced? No. Never married, actually. Damien took a sip of his coffee. I came close once about 5 years ago. But I realized I was settling. She was settling too. We wanted different things, had different priorities. We ended it before making a legal mistake. Do you regret it? Not even a little. She's married to someone else now, has kids, seems happy. We both got what we needed by being honest about what wasn't working. I wish I'd been that smart. You were 24 when you married Trevor. You're 32 now. You're not the same person. Give yourself credit for recognizing when something isn't working and having the courage to change it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, drinking coffee and watching the city move around them. Naomi felt something shifting inside her. The last piece of armor she'd been wearing finally falling away. She wasn't married anymore. She wasn't defined by being someone's wife. She was just herself, with all the possibilities that came with that freedom. Can I ask you something? She said. Always. What you said that night in your office. About waiting. Did you mean it? Damien turned to look at her, his expression serious. Every word. I'm divorced now. I know. So what happens now? That's up to you, Naomi. I'm not going to pressure you or rush you. You've been through hell these past few months. If you need time, I understand. If you want to keep things professional, I respect that. But if you're asking whether I'm interested, yes, I am. Very much so. Her heart was racing. She'd been telling herself for weeks that this attraction was just misplaced gratitude or loneliness, or the excitement of working on a challenging project together. But it was more than that. Damien saw her, really saw her, in a way Trevor never had. He challenged her, respected her, treated her as an equal. And she felt drawn to him in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. I don't want to make another mistake, she said quietly. I don't trust my judgment right now. Then trust mine. I think you're brilliant, capable, and stronger than you give yourself credit for. I think we work well together. And I think we could be good for each other outside of work too. But only if you want that. Only if you're ready. What if I'm not ready? What if I need more time? Then I wait. I told you I'm patient. Naomi looked at him. This man who had somehow become central to her life in just a few months. Who had given her opportunities she'd never dreamed of. who had shown her what respect looked like, who was willing to wait for her to be ready. "I don't want you to wait," she heard herself say. "I've spent enough of my life waiting for the right time, the right moment. I'm ready now." "Are you sure?" "No. But I don't think I'll ever be completely sure. And I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions." Damien smiled then, a full genuine smile she'd rarely seen from him. "Then how about dinner? Tonight. Not a work dinner. An actual date." "A date?" Naomi repeated, testing the word. "I haven't been on a date in almost 9 years. Good thing I have plenty of experience with first dates then." "Oh really? And how many first dates have you been on?" "Enough to know that this one is going to be different." They finished their coffee and walked back to the office together. Naomi felt like she was floating, like everything that had been weighing her down had finally lifted. She had a job she loved. She had a future full of possibilities. And she had someone who was interested in her for exactly who she was, not who she could be for them. That evening, she went home and stood in her house now, not theirs, and looked around with fresh eyes. It was time to make this space truly hers. She started making plans to redecorate, to remove the last traces of her marriage and create something new. When Damien picked her up at 7, she was wearing a dress she'd bought that afternoon, something bright and bold that the old Naomi would have been too self-conscious to wear. "You look amazing," he said. "I feel amazing." They went to a small Italian restaurant she'd never been to, sat at a corner table and talked for hours. Not about work, not about her divorce, just about life. Their childhoods, their dreams, their favorite books and movies and places they wanted to travel. Naomi couldn't remember the last time she'd had a conversation like this. Easy, engaging, fun. When he walked her to her door at the end of the night, Damien didn't try to kiss her. He just smiled and said, "Same time next week?" "Absolutely." She watched him drive away, then went inside and called her mother for the first time since the divorce had started. "Mom? It's me. I have so much to tell you." They talked for 2 hours. Naomi told her everything, the affair, the divorce, the new job, Damien. Her mother listened without judgment, offering support and love and pride in how Naomi had handled everything. "I'm so happy for you, honey," her mother said. "You deserve all of this. You always have. I'm glad you finally see it." When Naomi hung up, she felt complete in a way she'd never experienced before. She wasn't running from something anymore. She was running towards something. A life she'd chosen. A future she was excited about. A person she was proud to be. Trevor had thought she'd never divorce him. He'd been wrong about that and about so many other things. The best part? She didn't think about him anymore. Not with anger or regret or pain. He was just a chapter that had closed, making room for the story she really wanted to tell. 6 weeks after their first date, Naomi stood in her newly redecorated living room and barely recognized it. The heavy furniture Trevor had insisted on was gone, replaced with lighter pieces and colors she actually liked. The walls had been repainted from beige to a soft blue-gray. Plants filled the corners, bringing life and color into the space. This was her home now, filled with things she'd chosen. Her relationship with Damien had developed slowly, carefully. They'd been on 8 dates, each one revealing more layers of compatibility. He'd met her mother during a video call. She'd met his sister who lived in the city. They'd kept their relationship private at work, maintaining professionalism during business hours. But everyone knew. The way they looked at each other in meetings, the easy partnership they'd developed, it was obvious to anyone paying attention. The Quantum campaign had officially launched the previous week to massive success. Engagement rates were exceeding projections by 40%. 2 major industry publications had already reached out for interviews about their innovative approach. The company's stock had jumped 5 points on the strength of the campaign alone. Naomi had everything she'd ever wanted professionally. And personally, she was happier than she'd ever been. Then Trevor showed up. It was a Saturday afternoon. Naomi was reading on her couch when she heard knocking at the door. Persistent, urgent knocking. She looked through the peephole and her stomach dropped. Trevor stood there, looking disheveled and desperate. "Naomi, I know you're in there," he called out. "Please. I just need to talk to you for 5 minutes. 5 minutes and I'll leave. I promise." She considered not answering. She could call the police. There was a restraining order as part of his criminal case that said he wasn't supposed to come within 100 feet of her. But something in his voice made her pause. He didn't sound angry. He sounded broken. Against her better judgment, she opened the door but didn't invite him in. "You're not supposed to be here. You're violating the restraining order." "I know. I'm sorry. I needed to see you. To talk to you face to face one last time." He looked terrible. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair uncombed. He'd lost weight and there were dark circles under his eyes. Can I just come in for a minute? No. Whatever you need to say it from there. Trevor took a shaky breath. I messed up. I know that. I've known it for months. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me and I'm paying for it now. The criminal charges, I have a record now. No one will hire me. Bridget won't even return my calls. I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment that costs half my unemployment check. Everything is falling apart. Naomi felt no satisfaction in hearing this. Just a distant pity. I'm sorry you're struggling, she said. But that's not my problem anymore. I know. I know it's not. I'm not here to ask for your help or your forgiveness. I'm just here to tell you, I see it now. Everything you tried to tell me about respect and partnership and real love. Didn't understand any of it when we were married. I took you for granted every single day and I thought that was okay because you were my wife and you'd always be there. I was an idiot. Yes, you were. I heard you're dating your boss, Damian Cole. Naomi stiffened. How did you know that? I still talk to a few people who work at your company. They mentioned seeing you two together outside work. I wanted to be angry about it, but I can't be. Not really, because I did this. I pushed you away. I made you stop loving me. And now you found someone who actually deserves you. This was surreal. Trevor had spent months harassing her, trying to manipulate her into coming back. Now he was here, accepting defeat? Why are you really here, Trevor? I'm moving. To another state. I got a job offer in Colorado, something in sales again. It's not great, but it's a fresh start. I'm leaving next week and I wanted to see you one last time before I go. To apologize. To tell you that you were right about everything. And to, I don't know. Get closure, I guess. You want closure? I want to stop hating myself for losing you. I want to be able to move on. And I can't do that if the last time we saw each other was in that courtroom with you looking at me like I was nothing. Naomi studied him. This broken, desperate man was the person she'd loved for 8 years? The person she'd built a life with? It felt like looking at a stranger. I don't hate you, she said finally. I don't feel anything about you at all, Trevor. You're just someone I used to know. Someone who taught me a lot about what I don't want in a partner. That's your legacy in my life. That's more than I deserve. Probably. But I'm not interested in revenge or making you suffer. I just want to live my life without you in it. Are you happy? With him? She could have lied. Could have said it was none of his business. But there was something liberating about being completely honest. Yes, I'm happier than I've ever been. He treats me like an equal. He respects my work, my ambitions, my opinions. He makes me want to be better without making me feel like I'm not enough. Everything you should have been but weren't. Trevor flinched like she'd hit him, but he nodded. Good. That's good. You deserve that. They stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Then Trevor turned to leave. Trevor? Naomi called out. He turned back hopeful. Get help. Real help. Therapy or whatever you need. Not for me, for yourself. Figure out why you sabotage good things. Because if you don't, you'll just keep making the same mistakes with the next person. I will. I promise. And Naomi? Thank you. For everything you did try to make our marriage work. I know I never appreciated it, but I do now. He walked to his car and drove away. Naomi watched until his taillights disappeared, then closed her door. She felt nothing. No sadness, no anger, no regret. Just a quiet certainty that this chapter was finally, truly over. She texted Damien. Trevor just showed up. Don't worry, I'm fine. He's moving away. It's done. The reply came within seconds. Are you okay? Do you need me to come over? I'm perfect, but you can come over anyway. Bring dinner? An hour later, Damien arrived with Thai food and a bottle of wine. They ate on her new couch and she told him about Trevor's visit. How do you feel? Damien asked. Relieved. Like I finally closed a book I'd been reading for too long. I don't love him anymore. I don't even remember what loving him felt like. That's how you know you've truly moved on. She leaned against him, feeling safe and content. I never thought I'd be here. 6 months ago, I was trapped in a marriage that was killing my spirit. Now I have everything I want. Career I love. A home that's actually mine. You. You did all that yourself. I just happened to be smart enough to recognize how incredible you are. They spent the rest of the evening talking about the future. Damien had been offered a position as CEO of a startup, a risky but exciting opportunity. He was considering turning it down to stay at Cole Industries. Don't, Naomi said. If it's something you want, do it. I'm not going to be the person who holds you back from your dreams. It would mean long hours, lots of uncertainty. We've only been together for a few months. I don't want to jeopardize this. You won't. I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure it out together. He kissed her then, soft and sweet. I love you. I've been waiting to say that, but I can't wait anymore. I love you. Naomi felt her heart swell. She'd thought she'd known love with Trevor, but this was different. This was partnership, respect, equality. Two whole people choosing each other every day. I love you too. They stayed up late, making plans and dreaming about the future. When Damien finally left around midnight, Naomi stood at her window and looked out at the city lights. She'd thought revenge meant making Trevor suffer for what he'd done. But real revenge was this: living well, being happy, showing him what he'd lost and never getting back. She was thriving. And Trevor was gone, moving to another state to start over, carrying the weight of his mistakes with him. Justice, it turned out, didn't always look like punishment. Sometimes it just looked like success. 6 months later, Naomi stood in front of a floor-length mirror in her bedroom, adjusting the lapels of her new suit. Today was the industry awards ceremony, and the Quantum campaign had been nominated for innovation in marketing. Whether they won or not, she was proud of what her team had accomplished. The doorbell rang. She grabbed her clutch and went downstairs, opening the door to find Damien in a tuxedo, holding a small bouquet of flowers. These are beautiful, she said, taking them. You didn't have to. I wanted to. Big night for you. Big night for us. You're nominated too for executive leadership. They drove to the venue together, a luxury hotel downtown. The ballroom was filled with industry professionals, all dressed to impress. Naomi recognized several competitors, journalists, and executives from other companies. A year ago, she would have been intimidated by this crowd. Now she walked in with her head high, confident in her achievements. Her mother had flown in for the occasion and was already at their table, chatting with Damien's sister. They'd both become close over the past months, bonding over their shared love for the two people who'd found each other against all odds. You look stunning, honey, her mother said, hugging her tight. Thanks, Mom. The ceremony began with cocktails and networking. Naomi found herself in conversation after conversation, discussing the Quantum campaign, answering questions about their methodology, exchanging business cards with people who wanted to learn more. She was no longer just a senior coordinator who'd gotten lucky. She was a director with a proven track record, a rising star in the industry. When they finally sat down for dinner, Damien leaned over and whispered, You're amazing at this. Working the room, making connections. You were born for this level. I just stopped being afraid of taking up space. The awards portion of the evening began. Categories were announced, winners were called to the stage. When they got to innovation in marketing, Naomi felt her heart racing. Her team was up against 3 other campaigns, all impressive in their own right. And the award goes to the Quantum Campaign Coal Industries. Accepting the award is Director of Strategic Marketing, Naomi Bennett. The room erupted in applause. Naomi stood, her legs shaking, and made her way to the stage. She accepted the Crystal Award from the presenter and stood at the microphone. Thank you so much for this honor, she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. This campaign was a team effort from start to finish. I want to thank my incredible team who worked tirelessly to bring this vision to life. I want to thank Damien Cole for believing in my idea and giving me the resources to make it happen. And I want to thank everyone who doubted that a new approach could work. You motivated me to prove you wrong. The audience laughed and applauded. Naomi left the stage, award in hand, feeling like she was flying. Damien won his award too for executive leadership. His acceptance speech was characteristically brief and gracious, but when he came back to the table, he was grinning. We make a good team, he said, touching his award to hers in a toast. The best. Later that night, after the ceremony had ended and they'd celebrated with drinks and dancing, Damien drove Naomi to a spot overlooking the city. They sat on the hood of his car, looking at the lights spread out below them. I have something to tell you, Damien said. Should I be worried? I hope not. I took the CEO position at that startup. I start in 2 weeks. Naomi felt a flash of surprise, but not concern. That's amazing. You're going to be incredible. I wanted to tell you first. It's going to mean long hours, especially at the beginning. Less time together. I know that's not ideal, but... Damien. She took his hand. I support you 100%. We'll figure it out. We always do. That's what I love about you. You never try to hold me back. You push me forward. Because I'm not afraid of you succeeding. Your success doesn't diminish mine. He pulled her closer, kissing her under the stars. Move in with me. Naomi pulled back, surprised. What? Move in with me. I know it's fast, but we're together most nights anyway. And I want to wake up with you every morning. Not just sometimes. Every day. She should probably say they needed more time. Should probably be cautious after her divorce. But Naomi was done living cautiously. She'd learned that life was short and opportunities were precious. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll move in with you. They stayed on that hill for another hour, talking about logistics and timelines in the future. When they finally drove back to her house, Naomi felt a sense of rightness she'd never experienced before. This was what partnership looked like. Two people supporting each other, celebrating each other, building something together without either one diminishing the other. 3 weeks later, Naomi stood in her empty house, the last of her boxes loaded into a moving truck. She'd sold the house to a young couple just starting their lives together. She hoped they'd fill it with better memories than she and Trevor had. As she locked the door for the last time, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Naomi, this is Trevor. I know I shouldn't reach out, but I wanted you to know I saw the news about your award. You deserved it. Congratulations on everything. I hope you're happy. She stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it without responding. Trevor was her past. Damien, her career, her future. Those were what mattered now. She drove to Damien's apartment, their apartment now, and found him waiting in the doorway, smiling. Welcome home, he said. Home. Not a house she'd shared with someone who didn't appreciate her, but a real home with someone who loved her for exactly who she was. Naomi had started this journey thinking about revenge, about making Trevor pay for what he'd done. But she'd learned something important along the way. The best revenge wasn't making someone suffer. It was living so well that they became irrelevant. It was building a life so full of joy and success that you stopped thinking about them at all. Trevor had thought she'd never divorce him. He'd been wrong. He thought she couldn't make it without him. He'd been wrong. He thought she'd peaked, that she'd never be more than the woman cooking his dinner and supporting his career. He'd been spectacularly wrong. And now, as Naomi walked into her new home with the man who truly loved her, carrying an award that recognized her brilliance, she realized something. She'd won. Not because she'd destroyed Trevor's life, that had been his own doing, but because she'd built a life so incredible that what Trevor thought or did or felt simply didn't matter anymore. That was the ultimate revenge. And the ultimate victory.
Before we close this story, I want you to take a quiet moment and really think about what you just witnessed. Because this wasn't just a story, it was a journey through pain, through struggle, through moments that could have broken someone completely but didn't. What you saw today is a reflection of a deeper truth, a truth about resilience, about courage, about the kind of strength that doesn't always look powerful on the surface, but refuses to disappear no matter how heavy the weight becomes. Underneath that matter, stories that carry emotion, meaning, and truth even when they are fictional, because they are inspired by realities that exist in the world around us. Stories of Black women who are often underestimated, overlooked, or unheard, and yet, time and time again, they rise. They rise after betrayal. They rise after injustice. They rise after being told they are not enough. And every time they rise, they redefine what strength truly means. Maybe as you listened, you felt something shift inside you. Maybe certain moments stayed with you. Maybe you saw a reflection of real struggles, struggles that don't always get the attention they deserve. That's why these stories are told, to give voice to what is often silenced, to shine light on what is often ignored, to remind the world that strength can come from the most painful places and still become something powerful, something unbreakable. Because being strong doesn't mean never falling, it means rising, even when no one expects you to. And the women in these stories, they rise not just for themselves, but for every voice that has ever been doubted, dismissed, or pushed aside. So, if this story touched you, if it made you think or feel or reflect in any way, then carry that with you. Let it remind you that behind every struggle, there is story worth telling. Behind every scar, there is a victory that deserves to be seen. And behind every woman who refuses to give up, there is the power the world cannot ignore. If you believe in stories like this, stories that speak truth, strength, and resilience, then stay connected with us because there are many voices to hear, many more journeys to witness, and many more powerful stories waiting to be told. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until the next story, take care, stay strong, and never underestimate the power of rising again.